All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Sydney here from International Programming for Generation Citizen, and welcome to our November webinar focusing on incorporating youth voice and leadership in our organizations. Just as a quick reminder, we will not be having a webinar in December, so this will be the final webinar for the year of 2017. Very exciting. So, Bonnie, if you could click the next slide, please. Thank you. Just to quickly go through our agenda of what's ahead. First, Bonnie Mills from the Generation Citizen team will be talking about the Student Leadership Board, which is a pretty recent initiative developed by Generation Citizen, trying to amplify youth voice and youth leadership in decision-making in the operations of Generation Citizen. So we're excited to talk more about the first couple of cohorts of the SLB team. And she'll also be sharing some insights from one of our Student Leadership Board members. So excited about that. We'll have some time for question and answers following her presentation. And then we will be having a commentary by Amire Mutizi from the Chitangwiza Community Development Network, which will focus on current youth voice in Zimbabwe and youth activism in the current political climate. And that will also be followed by some question answer time. And lastly, as we did in our most recent webinar in October, we've added some helpful resources about elevating youth voice in leadership positions and organizations, just so that you can do some extra reading, extra research if you want more information about this topic. So excited for all that is to come today. And Bonnie, I will turn things over to you.
Great, thanks, Sydney. So as Sydney mentioned, I'm excited to get to share a little bit with you all today about Generation Citizen Student Leadership Board. As Sydney mentioned, it is a newer initiative for our organization. It began in 2016, and it really began in order or as a response to, as a response or an effort to try to practice what we preach, as they say, in the sense that we are an organization that works to elevate youth voice. And we realized we needed to do that actually within our organization and not only externally. So in 2016, we started trying to figure out who those students could possibly be. And we ended up deciding on students that would be from our sites, at least 2 members from each of our sites. We have 6 physical sites throughout the United States. So 2 members from each for a total of 12. This year, actually, we had 2 returners from the previous year, so you have a total of 14, but it's just a smaller number. They provide guidance and feedback on organizational initiatives. So upcoming projects that are going to happen within the organization or something that's currently going on. We also like to bring to them challenges we're facing to see if they, and they often do, have alternative perspectives or feedback or ways to look at it differently. And then they also help promote GC, of course, Generation Citizen, and Action Civics in general, which is the work that we all do as a staff, but as well as our national and associate and local boards, which are made up of adult members. They also promote our work in Action Civics at large. And so that sort of connects back to another point that I wanted to make, which is that the Student Leadership Board, as much as possible, mimics and operates and behaves the way a national board made up of adults would. Finally, in addition to the guidance and feedback that they provide of promoting GC, in return, board members receive additional professional development and training through a retreat that we do in the summer. I'll let Anaya tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. As well as a small stipend of $1,000 for per SLB member for the year for all their hard work and contribution. So before I end up telling you everything about the Student Leadership Board, which would sort of defeat the purpose, last week I conducted an interview with one of our Student Leadership Board members, Anaya Allen, and I'm going to show you all that video now. So give me just a moment and I'll pull it up for you. Can everybody see my screen with the video?
Yeah, yes, I can see it here.
Yep.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, here we go. I'm going to push play on this interview with Anaya. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bonnie Mills, and I am the Manager of National Program and Partnership Development for Generation Citizen, and I'm joined here tonight by my colleague, Anaya.
Hello, my name is Anaya. I am a ninth grader at Oakland Tech, and I am calling from Oakland, California. I am 14 years old, and I am a member of the Student Leadership Board.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me tonight, Anaya. Basically, we are going to learn a little bit more about the Student Leadership Board, which Anaya is a member of. And then we're going to share this information with our global network next week during our next webinar. So, Anaya, do you mind if I go through and ask you a couple questions to learn more about the network?
Of course not.
Great. Awesome. Well, why don't you tell me first, just in your own words, what is the Student Leadership Board?
So I would describe the Student Leadership Board as a student-led program that is a part of Generation Citizen, I guess you can say. And I would say it's hosted or organized by Generation Citizen to help students become better at becoming leaders and using their voices.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much. And how did you find out about the Student Leadership Board?
So I found out, well, first I was a part of Generation Citizen. They were coming to my school where we had democracy coaches, and we basically picked like a focus issue at school. And then I went to Civics Day, and I was greeted by other previous Student Leadership Board members where they introduced me to this and told me I should sign up because they felt like I would be a good candidate. So of course I signed up off that because I was doing Generation Citizen for 2 years at school, and I was like, yes, please let me do it. And yeah, I went from there. That's how I found out.
That's awesome. So you were a student in a GC class first.
Right.
Awesome. Great. So you kind of already touched on this, but can you explain any more about why you decided to apply or why you wanted to be on the Student Leadership Board?
Yeah, so other than me being really excited, to be more specific, I was working with them, like I said, for 2 years as a student. And I'm really passionate about doing anything about with changing my community or being a leader in general. Like, that's my favorite thing to do. And so when they told me, like, you know, this is basically what we do in Student Leadership Board is learn how to like advocate for not only our community, but just the world in general and collaborate with other students, I was like, okay, I need to apply because I just love this type of stuff. And so I felt like it would fit me, and not only fit me, it would be very beneficial for my community and my school. And also inspiring to some of my classmates who don't like to use their voice at all sometimes, but I know they have one. And so I just felt like I can be supportive by joining and making change.
That's awesome. Don't just talk about change, lead it, right?
Yeah.
So when you decided to apply, what was the application and interview process like? Like, what did you have to do and what were the steps?
So first off, of course, you had to go through the application process, which was just asking you basic questions like, would you be willing to sometimes sacrifice your time for Generation Citizen? Maybe if you do too many sports or too many extracurriculars, you might want to try and learn to balance some, or maybe this one fit for you. But other than that, it was just asking, like, what do you like to do with some of your hobbies? Very chill application process. And it wasn't pressuring at all. I've done so many applications where I was like sweating, but this one was so simple. Generation Citizen was not judgmental at all. I worked with you, Bonnie, Sarah, Caitlin, and you guys were so supportive that I was like, I'm not going to get in because I had some technology issues on my side and I didn't turn in my application like a week later. But you guys were so supportive, non-judgmental, and I ended up getting in anyway. So very great application process. You'll be very comfortable doing it.
Awesome. And did you interview with anybody, or did you just apply and then hear from somebody on staff?
Oh, right. So the interviewing, you kind of did your own, I think it was 2-minute to 3-minute interview, very short interview, just explaining maybe some of the focus issues when you were a student of Generation Citizen, working with like democracy coaches. How was it for you? How is Generation Citizen? Why do you want to join? Basic questions, and you just kind of did it, recorded a video of yourself and sent it so they can know your experience.
Awesome. That sounds pretty easy to me.
Yeah.
So now that you've been on the board, let's see, what's it been like? Like, what's it been like to serve on the board?
It's been lots of fun, and lots of opportunities. Meeting new people, I would say, is one for me, just because you're not just meeting people in your environment, or if you're in California, for example, it's not just the California team. You get to collaborate with so many other students out of state, and I think it's like so much fun to hear other people's stories and what their experiences was with Generation Citizen. And I also think it's like a great way for you to learn how to come up with improving Generation Citizen, because everyone has different opinions and such great ideas, and I just feel like it's just a room and program full of brains. It's amazing. So for me, it's been a great learning experience, and just having great opportunities, going to New York, doing all these different events where I get to explain my story and how I got into Generation Citizen. It's amazing.
That's awesome. You said you went to New York. What did you do with the Student Leadership Board in New York?
So if you are accepted, you get to go to a retreat, and this is where you get to meet all of the Student Leadership Board members, who are usually from different states, and we go to New York at Wagner College, is where we all stay for about 2 days, 3 days, and we have meetings throughout the day just to discuss what we're going to do in Generation Citizen, what is Generation Citizen, learn about civic education more, how to advocate for civic education, share our stories, and just build a bond with each other, because we're going to be working with these people throughout the year. And also there's fun. We got to do laser tagging and Broadway show. So it was really fun to be on campus and be with new people. And it was almost like being with family. It's really good. Fun.
That is awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So you've mentioned, I guess, already some of the activities that you've gotten to take part in.
Right.
Are there any other activities that either you've done or that you know of that board members have done that you could share?
As far as like at the retreat, or just activities in general?
Just like with Generation Citizen, like have you been like one of the events that you've been to or something like that?
So I know a couple students got to do things like creating an article about their experience with Generation Citizen, which I haven't got to yet. But some things that I have done was collaborating with other programs to be a representative for Generation Citizen. So I did a program called AspenX, which was just a 2-day program where they came to Oakland and we discussed about race and gentrification and how to improve that. And then, of course, the big Civics Day, you get to participate in and be host, where I get to then promote SLB and have some other members come. And then Democracy Coach training, which I was not able to attend, but it's where we get to train and share our experiences with democracy coaches, who are usually college students and sometimes teachers, who will then teach their classes about Generation Citizen and civic education. I think there's so many more.
Yeah, those are great examples. I mean, getting to write blogs and to meet events, going to Civics Day, those are awesome. Let's see. So if you had to choose in general, or you can pick something specific, but what's something that you've learned or like knowledge that you've gained from being on the Student Leadership Board?
Good question. I learned a lot. I would say being able to learn how to speak for myself and help speak for others as well. I think sometimes it's kind of hard if you're a shy person or you're just not sure how to approach things, especially as a youth. I think it's really hard for us to be heard sometimes, and we don't know who to go to, where to start when we have some type of concern or issue in our community or in the world in general, even at home. And so I think I've learned how to be open-minded and also learn how to better present myself and explain what I want and my concerns and how to change it. I think I also became way more of a leader too, because although I was a leader, I feel ahead of time or before this, I just feel like now I know how to really lead by example, I guess you can say. So I think that's basically what I've learned.
Those are great things to have learned. That's awesome. Well, so my last question for you, Anaya, is what piece of advice would you give to other organizations that are thinking about doing youth leadership or something similar?
Advice, I would say to definitely, first off, support the youth and listen to us, I feel, because I think that's like the big issue is that I feel like youth is just not heard. And I think listening to us is a big part of that. Also letting us lead a little bit, I think you guys can always be by our side to help, but letting the youth really lead and collaborate with each other is so strong. I didn't really think it was as strong as it was until I did the retreat actually, and we came up with so many great ideas. And it was just amazing to hear others' experiences and stories and how we really connected. So I would say listening and letting the youth lead a little bit will get you to success, definitely.
Oh, that's brilliant and wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Anaya, for sharing your thoughts and your experiences and explaining what the board is like. I know this information is going to be valuable for other organizations that are interested in doing the same sort of work. So thank you so much.
I hope it's helpful to everyone. I really enjoy doing Generation Citizen. So thank you.
I really think it will be. Thanks again. All right. So I hope you all enjoyed getting to hear from Anaya. Like I said, she's a well-spoken young woman, and I hope that you appreciated the sort of summary of the board, some of the ins and outs of it, both the structure and then activities that they've done. Also happy to discuss more of this with anybody who's on the call that wants to at a later point. So I'll open myself up for questions now, but also happy to answer questions later if anyone is interested in setting up a similar type of student leadership board with their organizations. So are there any questions? All right. Well, that is totally fine. Again, if
Bonnie, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Are the students on the student leadership board, are they involved in choosing the next cohort? Do they play a role in that?
Great question. Yes, they are. So the students serve for 1 year, and they start their tenure, if you will, starts in August. And so they'll go from August to July, and the new members will start applying in May, like April and May, and they'll get interviewed in June. They get interviewed by staff members and by current SLB members. So the current SLB members interview the future ones, and then they make recommendations on which members they think should essentially take their place. Some of the SLB members, like I said before, will be returners. They'll still have to apply, go through an interview process, and be recommended by their current peers to return.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Any other questions? All right. Well, as I said before, I'm happy to answer more questions in the future. We've actually had multiple organizations reach out to us about our student leadership board. And I've spent some time, just yesterday actually, answering questions about how it worked with an organization here in the States who was thinking about doing something similar. So we believe that this kind of work is important to elevate student voice, and then to do it internally as well is just really valuable. So happy to share it with others and answer questions about it at a later date.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bonnie. What a wonderful interview. Really great to hear all that Anaya had to say about SLB. So excited to have that continue. And for those of you who do have some questions for Bonnie or our team about SLB, you can direct those to globalnetwork@generationcitizen.org, and I'll forward your comments and questions their way. Okay, moving on. So unfortunately, Amira was not able to make this call. So I will just briefly summarize the presentation that he's forwarded to us and that we have here today. Obviously, I'm not an expert on the work that CCND is doing, but happy to give a quick summary based on what I am familiar with. So here we have the Chitangwisa Community Development Network, talking about the role of youth voice in unlocking the democratic space in Zimbabwe, and the context of history in that country and youth participation. So here, Amiri has started with a quote that says, "Dictatorship doesn't just happen, it's the product of a citizenry that does not engage and participate in the political process." So here he's really making a call to action about the importance of citizen engagement, and especially young people. And that's what CCND really focuses on fostering. So here's a quick summary about CCND. I won't read the entire thing because it's a bit dense, but it is an organization that works with youth that's been around since August 2010. As you can see, they've managed to reach a lot of young people over the past 7 or so years, almost 2,500, which is quite impressive. So working with young people to make a difference in their local and national community. And the main goals or themes of this organization is to promote active citizenship, and to get more young people involved in decision making and making the change that they want to see in their lifetime. Here's a bit about the context. Again, a lot to read, but I'll quickly summarize. So Zimbabwe's been independent since 1980 and had been under the rule of one president, President Mugabe, and currently the country is struggling with things such as unemployment and inefficient social service systems and things like that. So there's some undemocratic tendencies really taking hold in the country, and so CCDN is really trying to make a difference, starting with the youth. So here we have youth context. So as you can see, Zimbabwe has this new influx of young people making up majority of the entire population, and so therefore it's an excellent target for trying to instigate change. They're a large demographic and they have concerns and passions, and once that potential gets tapped, they're able to make a difference in their communities. And that is where CCDN comes in, to provide that platform for capacity building. So some strategies that they've employed is connecting with young people over social media, and also helping to train these young people to connect and engage through online platforms, because as we all are learning now, that's an excellent way to reach wide audiences that otherwise may be inaccessible. It's a great way to spread messages and contact folks, and not just inform people about what's going on, but also to encourage them to participate in civic engagement activities, vote, etc. And there's more information below about how to connect with the community via online resources. Okay, so on the left it says Chito News citizen reporters after a training workshop. So training these students about how to spread information, how to communicate with people, and really honing in on capacity building through these training workshops. And Zim Dance Hall artists and dance groups at a Chito News roadshow. So not just spreading messages through social media, but also getting out into the community, expressing themselves through art and communicating messages in that way. Okay, so moving on, CCDN has additional workshops, again, about communication and also tapping into the interests, the skills and talents of the youth that they are working with. So here it talks about working with actors, comedians, musicians, about how to spread messages through their art and through their work about the current political climate and the change that they are desiring and that they're demanding. So really CCDN is trying to, as you know, we saw with SLB and also with Generation Citizen, trying to build their capacity as young leaders from within this organization to take next steps as they move forward. Admiri had mentioned to me that there was in fact a song included in this presentation, but unfortunately we don't have the music for that. But here you can see some lyrics for the song. Can you go back for a sec? Let's see. Song called Serving Unheard Voices. Thank you. Here is some commentary about, again, about the political climate in Zimbabwe, focusing on some voting restrictions, some laws that make voting in the country pretty inaccessible to certain people that youth created, this propaganda, as he says. And again, another youth interpretation or commentary about the political climate in this day and age. More youth commentary. And again, more representations. Okay, so here in conclusion, what we have in this presentation is ultimately discussing the current political climate in Zimbabwe that is experiencing some tension and provoking youth action for change. They've seen the current state of affairs and are identifying areas in which they think that their country is able to change and move forward. And so we are excited to see what CCDN will continue to do with its students and young people as time goes on, and how they will continue to agitate change in their communities. So anyway, thank you all for bearing with me in giving that brief summary. And I will share Admiri's contact information in the follow-up email, so that if you have questions or comments, recommendations or whatnot for CCDN, and you want to get involved and get more clarification about this presentation, you can most definitely do so. I know he'll have a lot more information than what I can provide. So thank you for that. Okay. Now, moving on to our last portion, last but not least, we have some additional resources. So, again, we wanted to share some reports and some websites that you could all go to following this webinar that would supplement some of the ideas and themes that we discussed today, that we thought could add some extra enrichment to this topic of incorporating youth voice in our organization. So first, I just wanted to introduce this report from 2016 coming from Boston After School and Beyond and Health Resources in Action. And this report is called Strategies for Incorporating Youth Voice into Program Design. And I will share, again, we'll share the link in our follow-up email. You can also find it under the webinars tab on our website in the next few days. And so, yeah, exciting to check out this report. It gives some great information about how to effectively bring youth voice into organization management. Not just about talking about how to include youth voice, but really goes deep into implementation best practices and how to successfully bring young people into the conversation at a leadership level. This report also includes feedback from young people about how they benefited from being at the table with decision makers and organizations that focused on youth development, youth leadership, and being involved with all that and the impact it had on them, and also which experiences they enjoyed and what they got most out of these opportunities. And next, thank you. There's this great website called youth.gov, and in the link that, again, I will be sending to you all, there's a huge slew of resources focusing on incorporating youth voice, how to build your own student leadership board like GC has, so practices regarding that initiative, and various other toolkits to engage young people who perhaps currently are apathetic at the moment or not involved in their communities. Also, strategies for youth and adult partnerships and how to strategically go about forming those in a productive way that works best for everyone. So again, great resources. I was super excited to read through them. Gave me a lot of hope for moving forward for all of our organizations. And so we'll send out information about that, and feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions about these resources or want more, because there is no lack of information out there. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this webinar. Unless there are any questions, I'll open the floor for just a minute in case anyone wants to make last-minute comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, well, thank you again. My name is William from Uganda. I particularly enjoyed the presentation from the young people's participation in Zimbabwe. I missed having the writer or the person, the author of the presentation, because it would be interesting to find out exactly what is the feel now, especially that all of this is happening in Zimbabwe. But once again, thank you for the initiative. I think it's absolutely amazing. We look forward to get in touch, particularly with our colleagues in Zimbabwe, to celebrate them upon their great achievement, but to also learn a thing or two on how young people can take forefront, especially on such spaces as those. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. And happy to share Ed Murray's contact information again, so that you can actually personally follow up if you'd like to hear more from his perspective about what his organization is doing, if that would be helpful.
Yes, it will. Thank you.
Sure. All right, well, I guess that brings us to a close. Again, a reminder that this is the last webinar of 2017. Please look out for an email from Global Network at generationscitizen.org in the coming days, following up with this information, the link to the webinar online. And also, we will be reaching out to gather information about a newsletter that will be sending out to everybody, just to give a quick summary about what our partners have been doing this year, the great work that they've been up to, and our hopes for 2018. So thank you all for being here today with us, and thanks for those of you who are viewing afterward, and we will talk to you next time.